And good evening, everybody. Welcome to Real Fellas Talk Sports. I'm David Burnett, your host for this evening, joined by my fellas, Chuck Snowden, just coming in from Indiana, and Larry Abels, and hopefully we will get Earl Go-Go Rush with us shortly. We hope so. If not, we're going to power on because we got a lot of sports to talk about tonight, but primarily, mostly, the NFL playoffs. Boy, what a year we have had, and what a playoff start we have had. We're going to talk about every one of the playoff games we saw this past weekend and how they went. And I'm going to kind of go in an order of what I thought were the most engaging games: Packers versus the Cowboys. And let me start with you, Chuck. Green Bay Packers doing pretty darn well over the Cowboys. What's wrong with the Cowboys?
Well, first of all, before we say a word, I wanted to say hello to the fellas. Hey, listen, I'll have to give you your props, David. I argued with you early in the season about Jordan Love replacing Aaron Rodgers. And I was like, come on, man, that guy's not like that. He ain't that guy. Well, he is that guy. And he showed us the last 6 or 7 weeks of the season. And in that playoff against Dallas, in Dallas, and when they were 8-0, he looked pretty daggone good. And I mean, when I say good, I mean he was throwing the ball from the side angles like an Aaron Rodgers. It was as if it all came together. So I have to give you your props first and foremost. Secondly, I just think a quarterback has to have magic. And I hate to pick on Dak. I really do. He just is not magical. He's just not magical. And those 2 interceptions early in that game.
That was it.
But I thought that was the ball game. So I don't know. I mean, they had a hell of a season, those guys, but that was a disappointing performance in the play, defensively and offensively.
Larry Abels, what did you make of the Dallas collapse? And I know those of us in Washington, D.C. and Indianapolis don't care a whole lot about the Cowboys, but they are the #1 NFL team, and they seem to lose every year in the playoffs. What do you think, Larry?
Well, in this game this weekend, I just think Green Bay looked better prepared. 2 interceptions did do them in. One of them was a great defensive play where the guy sort of outfought the guy for position. The other one, it looked like they were ready for the particular play. It was almost like in this alignment, he's going to throw across the middle. Dak didn't even seem like he looked to his right, threw it, and he just stepped in and took it to the house. That game, 48-32, it wasn't even really that close.
No, it wasn't.
That was just some garbage points that the Cowboys got in the end. Do we see and I'll start with you, Larry, do we see a coaching change coming up? Mike McCarthy, pretty darn good coach in terms of the record, a Super Bowl win in Green Bay when he was head coach, 3 consecutive 12-win seasons, which is pretty good, but 3 consecutive failures in the playoffs. What do you think, Larry?
I don't know. I think Dallas is kind of just like a few cities, kind of impatient. I'm that way too. I wish my local team was that way. But I think they have some other issues there. I think the defensive coordinator probably had a direct line to Jerry Jones. So I'm really not so sure how much the coach, how much authority he had over him. Because I looked at their defense, that they weren't really ready to play either on Sunday. So it could be a number of issues there. Back to your original question, certainly a possibility that he can go. And if Belichick's available, I look for Dallas as a possible landing spot for him.
Chuck, coaching change in Dallas, is that needed?
I think that Larry hit it there at the end. I think that Belichick, if he had that group and maybe tweak a player here defensively or what have you, I mean, they would perform better because Belichick, when he has good players, he knows how to coach them up. Now, he might not be able to identify and go buy the groceries as the general manager, but he sure is a heck of a coach when he has the products. I think Belichick would make a difference for that team. I really do.
Well, we'll see if he gets the interview or if he wants the interview. Next game of consequence, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers defeating the Philadelphia Eagles 32-9. How do you collapse the way the Eagles have collapsed. And this wasn't just the playoff game. They've been on a downward spiral all for the last 6 or 7 games. It's pathetic. It's pathetic. Your thoughts, Chuck?
It's almost hard to fathom. And I mean, it's offensively, defensively, special teams. They just lost their mojo. I mean, they were 10-1 earlier in the year. And they lost 6 out of their last 7 or 5 out of their last 6. And they look bad. I mean, really bad. I wish I could explain it. I really do. I know Earl Gogo would say they had a lot of injuries on defense, but it's just not that simple. And that would be another good place that Mr. Belichick could, I think he could fix that with those big defensive linemen. That's another place that Mr. Belichick could, I think, address.
Larry, you're pretty astute in terms of your observation of professional sports.
Thank you.
What do you think happened in Philly based on your years of experience in watching sports and playing sports?
I'm not that astute. I was looking at their schedule, and I remember early in the year when they were 7-0 or 6-0, and everyone was saying weeks 7 through 12 or something like that, they were going to have a rough set of games. So I looked at their schedule. Number one, they had beaten the Bucks in week 3. They had beaten the Bucks in week 3, but in their weeks from 7 to 12, they played the Rams, the Cowboys, the Commanders, the Chiefs, and the Bills, and won all of those games. And then they only won 1 out of. I mean, they got to that real tough spot. They did have Dallas and San Francisco after that, but they seemed like they passed their test, and then the bottom fell out. And I don't think they were necessarily any more injured than they were. They've had injury problems all throughout the year, but they look unimaginative on offense and defense. And I think, as we talked about on this show, they've lost both their coordinators, and they've finally just caught up with them.
Now, but do we see a head coaching change? Nick Sirianni, can be flamboyant and expressive and all of that, but he looked like he was lost.
Well, here's the deal. That's another impatient city. And don't forget the guy Peterson is coaching Jacksonville. They let him go 2 years after he won the Super Bowl. This guy lost the Super Bowls, so his standard might not even be right. They're not afraid to make changes in Philadelphia.
Would you make a change if it was you?
Oh gosh, I don't know. I'd have to. I think losing both their coordinators definitely impacted them. But it looked like losing 6 out of 7. He didn't have the team. The team didn't look like they were ready to play.
First of all, they couldn't tackle anybody.
No,
they couldn't tackle anybody. I think, old sideline David Burnett could have gotten a couple of yards because that's all I did was stay on the sideline.
Hey, but even more than that, that's another game. Even though it looked like a blowout, where the score wasn't even the game wasn't as close as the score. I think Tampa dropped about 6 or 7 passes that would have gotten them big chunks of yards. They were dropping passes right down the middle and still crushed those guys. So I don't know.
Yeah, it's
Mike Evans dropped the touchdown. Right.
Kung Fu CJ, thank you for watching and staying with us. Let's talk about the Lions against the Rams. The Lions ending a 32-year playoff victory drought. 32 years. And they won by 1 point against the Rams. Are the Lions to be taken seriously? And let me start with you, Larry.
Oh, yeah, they're to be taken seriously. I think that, and this was by far the best game of the weekend, most competitive, the only competitive game, I might say.
24-23.
Yeah,
right.
But I think the Lions are going to be hard to beat. I wouldn't be surprised if they won this week. The week after next might be a bit of a problem for them. But, yeah, you got to take them serious.
Okay, what about you, Chuck?
I'm happy for them, too, because, they made that trade, Stafford for Goff, and for Goff to get that victory, that playoff win in Detroit, it's just such a feel-good story on so many levels. So I'm glad they won. I do believe that the coach of the Rams is one of the best coaches in football. And God knows they came from nowhere because I forgot they were even in the mix until the last 5 or 6 weeks as well. And it was a good game, but I'm glad golf won because of the trade and all the big stuff. And
yeah, there were a lot of soap opera aspects to that game.
exactly. So
And Detroit needs something. You know, Detroit, pitiful city that it is, or that it was. I'm sorry. To those of you who are from Detroit,
sorry,
Motor
Motown.
City,
Sorry,
I'm
Motown.
sorry. I'm sorry. I just called it the way it used to be. They're a better city now, and they got a better team. Okay, my bad. All right. Bills versus the Steelers. Now, I got to tell you, the Bills, I wouldn't be surprised if they win the whole damn thing. I wouldn't be surprised if they win the whole damn thing. Chuck, what do you think?
They're hot, and that's good. I mean, look, there was a time I thought that guy Josh Allen and Buffalo were really the real deal. I did. And then this year, they just got off to such a bad start, and Josh Allen was throwing interceptions, and they just looked lost. And then day 2, got hot, got it together, and they are formidable. They're great. They've been in these big games before. Josh Allen is tough as nails. That's what he had, 75 yards rushing the other day. They can play in any kind of weather. I mean, they could.
You know, now they were facing.
I don't think they're going to beat the Ravens, but yes, I do think they're, are competitive and really a good team.
Now they were facing the Steelers, who had all kind of problems this year, and Mike Tomlin once again did a masterful job of at least making them look respectable. And they had a respectable showing against a great team in cold weather, snowy circumstances. Larry, your thoughts?
Well, one big thing in that game, this cold weather game, I think the Bills rushed for 179 yards and Pittsburgh only 106. And I think that was a big problem for them. Certainly couldn't pass. My concern with the Bills, they've won 8 games in a row, including the game December 10th over Kansas City in Kansas City. And sometimes when you get on a streak like that, it's kind of hard to maintain. But I'm definitely looking forward to that game as the game of the week this week.
They get Kansas City in Buffalo. And I'll tell you, since our show has been on the air, one of the best playoff games this group has ever seen was that Kansas City-Buffalo game that was in Kansas City. And that was a heck of a shootout between Mahomes and Allen. Allen didn't get a chance in overtime to see if he could score. We always had we had a debate about that back then. And now they get Kansas City in Buffalo, and the Mafia will be ready, believe me.
I'm sure they will. Let's talk about the Texans defeating the Cleveland Browns, the imitation Cleveland Browns, I call them. They aren't the real Cleveland Browns. Texans 45-14. I thought Cleveland would be better than that. Joe Flacco didn't really show up. But the Texans, C.J. Stroud, my mea culpa on C.J. Stroud. I'm so sorry that I besmirched his name early in the season, but that kid is outstanding. What did the Texans do, Larry, to win that game?
You know what's interesting? I was looking at his stats in Love stats. They were almost exactly the same. Both of them faced pressure, but they completed passes while under pressure. The other thing that really did Cleveland in, Chuck had always said Flacco was going to turn into a pumpkin. I'm not sure he wasn't always a pumpkin because he's always had a couple of interceptions, but normally his defense has been able to bail him out. But when your defense doesn't get to come on the field after your interceptions, it's kind of hard to bail them out. And those 2 interceptions back to back, the pick 6,
that was it.
Effectively ended any chance that Cleveland had. I think Texas was going to win anyway, but
right.
And it put Joe Flacco back on the couch with the kids, and he did a respectable job. Chuck, your thoughts?
Absolutely did. He absolutely did. You just knew sooner or later, and he'd let it egg, unfortunately. But you got to give D'Amico Ryan. You got to give that coaching staff credit. You got to give those receivers credit. You got to give Stroud credit. They say these young rookies and first-year coaches in these playoff games. I mean, that's hard to do. and they did it really, really well. They executed, and they don't throw those little flare passes. They throw the ball down the field, and they execute and complete those passes. Pretty impressive bunch, I tell you. People should be afraid to play them.
The fact that D'Amico Ryans has been able to turn that team around, which has been moribund over the last couple of years. Terrible team the last couple of years. Lovie Smith didn't do anything, and you know how much I like Lovie Smith.
Right.
But D'Amico Ryans has just done something to re-energize that franchise. C.J. Stroud, much better than I thought. I wouldn't be surprised if they keep going. I don't think they'll keep going, but I wouldn't be surprised.
That trade benefited Houston big time. When they traded that quarterback to Cleveland, they got a lot of picks, and they made some good picks, and those picks have produced. So good for them.
Amen. Larry.
Yeah, I mean, I comment on the Texans. I think they're pretty good. Again, they faced a lot of pressure. Quarterback was under a lot of pressure. He made a lot of big plays. That reminds me of the first game of the season. I liked him from the first game because I saw him playing against Baltimore, and they kind of did the same thing. He didn't have quite the success against Baltimore,
right.
But I think that guy can play, and it'll be interesting Sunday because he's going to face that pressure again. I guess Cleveland was a good warm-up for him with pressure, but if he can hang in there like he did Sunday, who knows?
You never know.
I don't look for Jackson to play as poorly as Flacco did.
Right. Probably not. Last game to dissect: the Kansas City Chiefs defeating the Miami Dolphins 26-7. I thought we'd see more from Miami. Didn't you, Larry? What do you think?
Yeah, they were disappointed. They have this guy Mostert, and he was tied with McCaffrey for the most touchdowns this year. He got 8 rushes. And for some reason, they kept trying to throw screen passes, and he kept throwing them incomplete. And when he did complete them, Kansas City was just tackling him. Very few times downfield. I understand the weather was cold, but sometimes you got to throw it down there. Terrible performance to me. They looked like they didn't want to be there.
Do you think the weather had anything to do with it, Larry?
Absolutely.
Yeah, the weather was bad for everybody. Certainly it was hard for them to play in that way. Hard for anybody, but they didn't even look like they went downfield a couple of times and got a touchdown pretty quick. But for the most part, Kansas City was creeping up on them, taking away their screen, and then they didn't run the ball. I just didn't get it.
Chuck, your thoughts?
Come on, man. I think it was at one point it was -5 degrees. I mean, the coach's mustache was completely frozen, and it was one heck of a cold night. And if you're from South Florida, that was a lot to ask of Miami to do. And I just thought Kansas City took advantage of that, and that was to their advantage. And with a veteran like Mahomes, the odds were against Miami.
And there weren't as many dropped passes. They seemed to be more in sync. But they're going to need to be. They're going to need to be. Let's talk about the upcoming games. Let's real quickly. Ravens at home against the Texans on Saturday. Who you got? Just a real quick answer, Chuck.
I like the Ravens, and I like them big, maybe by 10 or more.
Larry, Ravens against the Texans.
I'm going with Baltimore. I think I expect the Texans to show up and play, but Baltimore has a more experienced squad. One thing that bothers me in this game as well as the next is that the Ravens quarterback this will be his first game in 3 weeks, and I think a little bit it's kind of hard to stay sharp when you're not playing. So that's a little caveat there, but I still look for Baltimore to win.
All right. 49ers at home on Saturday against the Packers. I'm saying I don't know. Chuck, who you got?
I like the 49ers by a lot. Look, Jordan Love played really, really well against the Cowboys, but we can't expect Jordan Love to go on the road and that one of the youngest teams in the playoffs that young Packer team. I think they had where 17 of their players have been born in the year 2000 or later. I just don't see them going out to the 49ers and beating them this time. So I give it to the 49ers.
Okay.
Hey, Sharice.
Hey, what's up, Sharice? All right, now let's go to Sunday. Lions at home against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And I'm just going to say, normally I'm not offering a whole lot of my opinion, but I can't see the Bucs winning anything. What do you think, Larry?
Well, I really couldn't see them winning last week. So and they won 6 out of 7 too. I mean, I think they'll show up and play. They actually seem to be peaking at the right time. I'm still not sure that's going to be enough, and I think the Lions will win that.
Okay,
but I think it'll be a better game than people expect it to be.
Exactly.
All right, Chuck, your thoughts?
I like their year. Look, this time they're going on the road and they're taking on the Lions. That last week it was at home. The defense will be solid. I just don't know that the offense can score enough points to beat the Lions. I think the Lions will win, but I don't think it'll be by more than 3-4 points. I'll give it to the Lions.
What big mistake is Baker Mayfield going to make? Fumble, interception. How many of those are total is going to happen? I'm saying the over/under is 3.
Baker's done a good job with that ball club this year. Look, they got in the playoffs and they've won a game. They're going through their second win. And last week he threw a strike to Mike Evans, the wide receiver, and he dropped a touchdown. So Baker's been okay.
All right.
They had 6 drops on them last week, and they still blew all the Eagles out.
Right. Crazy.
All right, here we go. Here's the game. I'm sorry, gentlemen, but the Buffalo Bills against the Kansas City Chiefs, I think the Chiefs are going to get waxed. Larry, your thoughts?
I look for a competitive and close game. It could go either way. I don't know. I got to make a pick.
Very good one.
I think I'm gonna go with the Chiefs.
All right, Chuck.
I think I'm gonna go with Buffalo because it's at home, the weather, all those things. It's the payback game, the crowd, and they're hot. Buffalo is hot, and so I'm gonna go with Buffalo.
I'm thinking that, and I kind of agree. I'm thinking that the Butterfingers of Kansas City are going to show up again in the cold weather and the snow in Buffalo.
They just played in cold weather last week.
Well, but they played at home.
They have problems with warm weather, apparently.
That could be. Real quickly, before we end our discussion on the NFL, I want to talk about the outstanding quarterback performances. I think Jordan Love was really good. Josh Allen was spectacular. C.J. Stroud, almost perfect. And Baker frickin' Mayfield, almost 400 yards of passing. There he is. Oh, by the way,
the sports doctor.
Go, sports doctor Rush.
Oh, man.
Welcome.
What's going on, gentlemen? I'm sorry I overslept today. I'm getting old. I'm just tired.
Well, we're all getting old. All right. Let me ask.
Before we leave the NFL, I just thought it was really, I don't know what's the word I'm looking for, but when you saw those fans in Buffalo clearing out their seats of all of that snow to be able to sit down to watch a playoff game, that was pretty crazy, right? I mean, there was snow all over the seats and so forth. So that was pretty remarkable, the weather.
All right, absolutely. C.J. Stroud, Baker Mayfield, who of those four, those are to me the 4 best performances of the weekend. Of those 4, who will be the outstanding quarterback? Of course, it's a given that Patrick Mahomes might be one of those 5, but I'm going to pick 4. Earl, welcome back. Your thoughts on the quarterback performances this past weekend? Who was the superstar in your eyes?
I would say Stroud probably.
Okay.
C.J. Stroud would probably be my pick.
All right.
He played great. He played great all year.
Yes, he has. Yes, indeed. Larry.
Again, I'm looking at this stats, right? Stroud and Jordan Love, both 16 for 21. Both had 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. One of them had 274. I think Stroud had 274 yards, and Love had 272. That's a draw. They both outthrew Josh Allen, but Josh Allen did have like 74 yards rushing. But the guy last week that played the best was Baker Mayfield.
Baker freaking Mayfield.
Some yards. Going forward, I'm looking for Josh Allen to have the best game this weekend.
Chuck.
I'm going to give it to Jordan Love. Let me tell you why. Dallas was undefeated at home, and this was a big freaking game for Dallas.
Mm-hmm.
And he went in there. They put up, 48 points or something ridiculous? It was 27-0 or whatever before Dallas even scored. That is a hell of a performance given how big a consequence that was for the Cowboys. So I'll give Jordan Love the edge over the other guys this week.
All right. Now let's real quickly, we're going to talk real quickly about the coaching. Bill Belichick is leaving the New England Patriots with one of the great football careers of all time in coaching. Your thoughts about Bill Belichick? And let me start with you, Earl.
Well, he's probably the greatest coach of all time, except for maybe Lombardi, in my opinion. I don't know. But he hasn't done anything recently.
What have you done for me lately?
Yeah, but I mean, he's not ready to go. He's going to get those. He's going to break that record, and he's going to go. You know, he had a great career. What can you say? You can't win every year. But the thing is, it's not that he can't coach. He's just he's always been a horrible general manager. He doesn't know how to pick talent. Coaching somebody and picking talent is a completely different thing. I mean, the Patriots have never had anybody good except for Randy Moss. That's it. They haven't drafted anybody. And the ones that have excelled were both special teams players, a punter and a kicker, have made it all pro. All these years that this guy's been a general manager. It's just time for him to move on.
All right. That's a thought. Chuck, your thoughts.
I agree with Earl. I don't think he is a good general manager, but I do think he's a good coach. And those teams, both Dallas and Philadelphia, they have personnel in place. And I believe that he could make a difference in both. I don't like him taking over. I know he interviewed with the Atlanta Falcons. I don't like that situation. But I think he would make a difference in both Philadelphia and Dallas. I don't know if they're going to pull the plug on that or pull the trigger, if you will. But I think those are two places that he would make a difference.
Let me have a shout out to my man, Al Richardson. He and I go way back, WTTG TV, one of the great editors there, still there, I believe. Al, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Al.
Keep it up.
Al, we appreciate you tuning in.
Big time.
Al Richardson, my man. All right, Larry, your thoughts.
Forgot where we were.
We're talking about Bill Belichick.
Oh, Belichick, yeah. Depends on what motivates Belichick. Some people tell me that he's motivated to get that all-time win record. I know Atlanta's looking for him, and I guess if they offer him enough money for 3 years, he could still probably get his 15 wins that he wants. But I'm looking for Dallas or Philadelphia as a possible landing spot for him if they fired their coaches.
Exactly.
Real quickly, another great coach, and he is a great coach, Pete Carroll, forced out of Seattle. Does he have a future anywhere? And what can we say about his career? Chuck, let me start with you.
Heck of a career. Unfortunately, they made the dumb, in my opinion, I always will say this, to make that pass on the goal line when you had Marshawn Lynch, or he would have had 2 Super Bowls. I don't know that he's going to land. I just don't. I don't.
You think his age is against him?
Yeah, probably. I mean, I know he's the same age as Belichick, but I don't think he'll land.
Earl, your thoughts? Pete Carroll.
I've never been a Pete Carroll fan. He's never done anything really great. He's never really done anything bad. I think I said I never even gave him too much of thought. So I don't. Not only do I not care, but I don't know that much about him.
All right, Larry, your thoughts on that?
I think he might land somewhere, I think he's a pretty decent talent evaluator. He got a lot out of
He is a Hall of Famer.
Geno Smith, and the one thing that really made him jump out to me, it might not seem like much, but when he made the decision to start Russell Wilson as a rookie, when he had a couple of other quarterbacks in camp, especially one that he had signed to a big contract, he just said, "Hey, he's out playing everyone." And I think it takes a lot of guts to do that.
Absolutely.
But I think team members, when they see it in practice, they appreciate that.
Yeah. Absolutely. Lastly, real quickly about Jim Harbaugh to the somewhere. Is he going to stay in Michigan, University of Michigan? Is he going to go to the Chargers? Is he going to go to any other team? And what would be a good fit for Jim Harbaugh? Larry, let me start with you.
I'd always thought about Michigan because he was still there, but then again, it might be a good time to exit on a high note. So the Chargers do have a quarterback. I'll say San Diego.
All right. Chuck.
I'll say the LA Chargers. I know he interviewed with Atlanta. If he didn't interview, he's going to. That makes no sense to me. So I believe he's going to end up with the Chargers.
Earl.
They're saying that he personally really likes the Chargers quarterback. So I would just imagine that he would go there. I don't think he's going to go to a team that doesn't have a quarterback, and I don't think he's going to go to a team where he has to start from scratch either.
Right.
So
right.
I'm looking at the Chargers as the best bet for him as well.
All right, gentlemen, that is our NFL wrap for this week. Let's move on to the NBA. And right here in Indianapolis, we had a big transaction occur. Pascal Siakam from the Toronto Raptors is coming to the Indiana Pacers, the team on the come. I've been telling you. Your thoughts, Earl? Pascal Siakam to the Indiana Pacers, is that going to make a difference for the Pacers? Are they going to be stronger now?
I think that
don't mess up now. You know what you got to say.
I got to say what I always say. What's on my mind? They will be stronger. And early in the year, I said I don't even think the Pacers will make the playoffs.
You're going to retract that now, right?
I didn't even think they'd make the play-in spot. But with the addition of Siakam, I think that they possibly will make the playoffs. To answer your question, yes, it definitely makes them stronger, but it doesn't make them strong enough where there'll be a difference at the end of the day. But,
okay, that's fair.
It's got an all NBA all-star player. Obviously, he's going to make the team strong. Anyone says he's not, they're tripping. And Halliburton's going to love to have feeding him on the wing. So it's a win-win. It's a win-win for Indianapolis on that situation.
Well, thank you, sir. Indianapolis appreciates that thought. Let me go to you, Chuck.
So
Siakam to the Pacers.
Of course, it's going to help the Pacers. And the interesting thing about that is the Pacers didn't really have to give up one of their guys. So Ben Mathers, I think that's his name, or Mathers.
Benedict Mathurin, yeah.
He's from Canada. So
right.
I know initially they were really trying to get him to be part of this trade. And kudos to the Pacers. They held on.
No, Matherin's too good to be dismissed like that.
Again, they were trying to get him for Toronto, but so they give up some picks, but they didn't have to give up players, and so I think it's going to help the Pacers. Is it enough to knock off the, Philly, Boston, Milwaukee? We'll see. I know they've beaten Milwaukee 4 times this year, but we'll see.
Larry,
I think it undoubtedly helps their team. He's an all-star player, adding him to the lineup. It looks like Indiana is trying to win now.
Right.
Well, they've hit the bottom, and now they're going to the top.
Yeah.
It's about time for another ABA team to win the championship. Since Denver's won, why not the Pacers? Real quickly. Speaking of, we were talking about Indianapolis. We got the All-Star game in a month. By the way, just FYI, week after the Super Bowl, the Indianapolis will be the center of the basketball world. the All-Star Game. And you know
I just left there actually today, and in the middle of the airport, they've set up an NBA court, basketball court with rims, the whole thing. Got the NBA logo in the middle, got the All-Star Weekend stuff all over the airport. It looks really, really cool. And I suspect you guys will host a heck of a weekend when they come.
Well, Indianapolis knows how to handle big events. That is one thing I can say about my city. They know how to host big events and
You
do
can turn
them
the heat up
properly.
in that city, though. It's pretty damn.
It would be nice if it was warmer. I got to tell you. Earl, your thoughts on the All-Star Game? Anything about my city? And you have visited this city before.
Yes. I'm thinking that I think they're going to be a great host. They're known for hosting sporting events. No matter what I think about the city in general. To answer your question, I think they're going to do a great job hosting the events, and I'm excited for the All-Star Game to be hosted in Indianapolis, the sports capital of the world.
And you said it correctly, Larry. He was right about that. The sports capital of the country and the world, Indianapolis, Indiana. Your thoughts about the All-Star Game coming to the Circle City, the capital of Indiana?
Yeah, I heard it was the sports capital of the world, for reliable source. Somebody just texted me, are we missing any chat? Some people said they were trying to chime in, so I didn't know. No, I'm looking forward to the All-Star Game. I hope it's more competitive. I'm glad they got rid of this choosing teams and all of that stuff. And I hope it's a little better game this year.
Well, it would be nice. But the All-Star Game is really just about a big party for the whole weekend. Yeah. And I hope we put on a great party here in the Circle City. Real quickly on the NBA, we got 2 7-footers, Victor Wembanyama and Chet Holmgren. Both, Holmgren's a little shorter, but both of them are playing spectacularly well. Holmgren on the better team, the Oklahoma City Thunder. Wembanyama on the Spurs, struggling on that team, but he's playing well. Let me start with you, Larry, because I know you've seen more of the NBA than all of us combined. Your thoughts about these 2 7-footers and which one of them is going to be Rookie of the Year?
They're both playing well. I think Hogan has the benefit of playing with better players around him. So he's doing a little better, and I mean, he might just be better. Right now, I'll say he's out playing Wemby, but Wemby's playing well too.
Chuck.
Yeah, they both are. I mean, those I would suspect right now, those will be the 2 Rookie of the Year candidates, the top 2. But we still have, time to go, if you will, to see what happens.
Earl.
What is the question? Who is playing better of the 2?
Yeah, well, your just thoughts of the 2 big men, the 2 7-footers, Wembanyama and Holmgren.
Oh, I think they're both very talented. I think that Wembanyama stats are better, but Holmgren team is playing better. So it all depends on what you put your stock into. But if you ask me who's a better individual player, I have to go by the stats. I would say Wembanyama. But as I said, Holmgren's team is playing very well, so that has to be taken into consideration as well.
I will tell you my observation of both those guys is they are kind of the future of the big man in professional sports. Both of them well over 7 feet tall, can handle, can shoot threes, can distribute. I mean, they do every aspect of the game and they do it well. And that's where the big man is going in professional basketball.
That's why we were talking before we came on air, David, that I think Edey, I still think it's not a slam dunk that he's going to.
No, it's not. And we're talking about Edey from Purdue University, the player of the year last year, and in his senior year at Purdue, 7'3", 7'4". When I saw him as a freshman, he was just a big monster lug thug. He didn't have any skills. and look at him, became player of the year.
You know what I heard about him? You know what I heard about him? This is his senior year, but with COVID, he could come back another year. He gets $2.5 million this year.
Well, you know what?
Million.
He's worth every penny.
I don't disagree. I'm just giving you an example of the money that's now in
the money in NIL.
What's he getting the $2.5 million for?
For being on that team through the NIL program and so forth. Yep, $2.5 million.
Well, that's about what the player of the year is supposed to get. College basketball is a little different than professional basketball. Real quickly, Draymond Green back with Golden State. I'm going to start with you, Chuck, because your boy from IU is kind of behind Draymond Green. What are your thoughts about Draymond? Is he reformed? Did the 12-game suspension help him? Is it going to help Golden State? Your thoughts?
We'll see. In terms of helping him specifically, I don't think Golden State has enough to make a. I don't think they're going to make the playoffs. I just don't. With or without him, unless they make a move. And I heard recently that the Dallas Mavericks or somebody was interested in Wiggins. So maybe there's a trade that they're talking about. There's 3 weeks left before the trade deadline. If Golden State is serious about trying to make the playoffs, they got to make a move.
Okay. Larry.
Yeah, I mean, he certainly makes them a better team there. I still don't think that they'll go too far this year. I mean, Father Time's just catching up with them.
Right.
And he's not really that good anymore.
Right.
Perhaps they probably should go with some of the younger players, like Kuminga's played very well lately.
Mm-hmm.
And I know he and Kerr had a little beef, so I guess they'll straighten that out, but I don't expect much out of them.
Right.
Earl.
The layoff is not going to. It takes more than missing 12 games to help to cure the kind of problems that Draymond has. You know, it's something I like him. He's great with Warriors, great ball player, hustler, defense, whatever. There's something that's wrong with him. It takes more than 12 games for him to be out. So to answer the question, does that help him any? No, it doesn't. As far as the Warriors in general, I told you guys 3 weeks ago, they're not even going to make the playoffs, not even the play-in spot. So, man, I don't know what else you want me to say. I'm trying to be as transparent as possible. They are done.
Right.
I would tend to agree with that. I wish Draymond the best, but he should go out and retire. It might be the best thing that happened to him. Bless you, young man.
Thank you.
$25 million a year, David. He ain't gonna retire. We can just take that off the table.
Well, if I'm Golden State, I would say this is your retirement. Bye-bye.
And this is the first year of that deal, right?
Yes, he
Yeah.
decided this summer.
With respect to him being better, I think the suspension needs to convince him to change his behavior. I don't know if he's fundamentally any more stable than he was at first. And part of me thinks that some players, when they lose their playing ability, they try to turn into physical guys, to hide their weaknesses.
Yeah.
Not that heavy. If you just have this guy, you just had a mental problem. It could have occurred in junior high school. It could have occurred in elementary. We don't know when it first started. We just know that this gentleman's not right. That's all. He's just not right.
Well, you said it correctly. Speaking of basketball, and we're going to get real pure about basketball as we wrap up the show. Caitlin Clark, the superstar basketball player for the University of Iowa, who sold out Memorial Assembly Hall, at Indiana University, 17,000. Is she one of, if not the most important basketball player in America right now? Chuck, let me start with you.
I don't know if she's my favorite boy or girl player this year. I like her a lot. The sellout you were talking about was last year, but this Saturday, Indiana, who was 14-1 and ranked 13th in the country, played at Iowa against Caitlin. And she put on a show. She had 20 at halftime, 30 for the game, beat us by 20. She's impressive. Then last night they beat Wisconsin. She had 32. And these are not layups. She's shooting deep jumpers. She's shooting 48% from the field. She does it with a little flair. I just really like her a lot. They are 18 or 17-1, and they're not loaded with a lot of talent like LSU or like South Carolina or USC or some of these other teams, and yet they keep winning. So I like her a lot. I don't know if she's a difference maker or little girls around America are trying to become Caitlin Clark. But boy, I like her.
Earl, your thoughts on Caitlin Clark as we wrap up the show?
She's dominating. She's dominated in college. That's all I can tell you. And I haven't seen I've seen several players in my lifetime that were better than her, but she ranks up there with some of the best for sure. She's not the best I've ever seen, but this young lady can shoot the ball.
Oh, yes, she sure can.
She can play basketball. That's all I can say.
Larry?
I think she's the best known college basketball player, regardless of gender. I think she's number one in terms of notoriety. Good for her. Very good player, obviously. And, hopefully some of her fame in college will transfer when she goes to the WNBA.
Well, real quickly on the WNBA and versus college basketball, women's college basketball, it's not even close. Women's college basketball is so far superior to the WNBA in terms of fan interest, and probably Caitlin Clark is making more money at Iowa.
$750. She's making $750,000.
The most she can make in the WNBA is $225,000. That's the most she can make. Now, at some point, does a Caitlin Clark change the financial dynamics of the WNBA? Larry, your thoughts real quickly.
With respect to that, I still don't understand why NIL people pay these guys. Most pro, essentially what she's getting is like an endorsement. Most pro players, men or women, don't get endorsements. So if that stream will be cut off when she gets to the NBA. WNBA.
Chuck. She's got those commercials with State Farm now. I don't know if that would be cut off if she got to the WNBA or not. She's marketable. People seem to know her. But yeah, I saw that she was making about $750,000 in NIL. And Aaliyah Boston, who was the number one pick last year, and you said it earlier, David, I think she's capped out at like 230, 220, something in that neighborhood. So, so Caitlin, she's a senior, but she might come back because of COVID for another year as well because of the money.
Earl, your thoughts on Caitlin Clark?
I don't think she'll come back another year. I think when she goes to the pros, there'll be somebody to be able to help this lady make some money the way she plays. Like I said, I just think she's awesome. That's all I can say. I don't have anything negative to say about her at all. So it's not too much for me to say, since I'm usually saying negative things about people. But it's nothing I can say. The lady's great.
All righty. Real quickly, I got to say this about Caitlin Clark. The folks here in Indianapolis, we're the home of the Indiana Fever WNBA team, who will have the first pick in the WNBA draft. And everybody's hoping, at least here in Indianapolis, that they pick Caitlin Clark. They hope they will pick Caitlin Clark and Aaliyah Boston, who came to the team, to the Fever last season, will be paired with, and I think they can be formidable. Could be formidable in the coming season. Gentlemen, I think that's all we've got. Andrew Stevens has got an announcement. I hope this is accurate. Mr. Stevens says that Jerry Jones announces that Mike McCarthy is returning as head coach.
Thank you for that information, Andrew, and thanks for checking out the show, my friend.
All right, guys. Any closing comments?
I do.
All right, go ahead.
The playoffs started last weekend. there were 4 black head coaches total in the National Football League that started in September. I know Antonio Pierce is one of them, but he got the interim job. 4 black quarterback or coaches in the NBA or NFL. All 4 made the playoffs. 2 of them won this past weekend. The Bucks coach Bowles and Ryan from the Texans. So I just wanted to acknowledge that, and I'm hoping that Pierce gets the full-time job with them. And they did announce that Gerard Mayo is replacing Belichick with the Patriots. So let's hear it. I think more black coaches are starting to get opportunities in the National Football League, and that's a good thing.
Any other closing comments?
How many white coaches won playoff positions?
I guess 2. I guess the other 2.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yes.
Any other closing comments, gentlemen?
Yeah, I'm going to reiterate one of the closing remark I had a couple of weeks ago. You know, these pro sports leagues make billions of dollars, not millions, but billions of dollars.
Mm-hmm.
And even with all the technology and all the money that they spend on the sport, they still can't find good referees, and they still can't make correct calls after seeing something on a replay. I just don't understand. I'm frustrated as a fan because every week, every game, there's some missed call. It's ridiculous. I know refs are people. They're human. They make mistakes. But every week, every game, every year, can't they go 1 week without a missed call, something on an important game? I just don't understand it.
That's a good point.
That's my thing.
It's a good point. Larry?
I have no remark this week.
All right. Let me just say this as I do a shout out to my favorite coach currently, Mike Tomlin. Every single year, he does some magic, sometimes patching up a team, propping them up, doing whatever that he has to do. This year, that team should have finished 2-15. And somehow he got them to the playoffs. And somehow they actually played a respectable playoff game that they knew that they weren't going to win. So to Mike Tomlin, a leader of men, as they call usually the defensive head coaches, leaders of men, as if they don't know how to handle the other side of the ball. All I know is he's a damn good football coach. 17 consecutive non-losing seasons. No other NFL coach has ever done that. That said, folks, we're going to leave you. I hope you will be tuning in next Wednesday at 8 p.m. for the Real Fellas Talk Sports.